There we are! Woo! Welcome to the Wanted Raw Foods Milk Launch event. There we are, seriously. Woo! Guys, thank you so much for coming on out here. We wanted to celebrate not just the world's best food grown by the world's best ranchers, but we also wanted to celebrate the world's best families gathering together to talk about the world's most hidden, censored topics. Topics like your actual health, your actual fitness, how you can take full responsibility for your mind, your body, and your soul. It is all connected. And let me tell you, what the powers that be do not want is for people like us to gather together as we have today to share the information that we're about to share today about how to empower yourself. Because once you empower yourself, then chains are broken. The system is broken. The system that relies on you being broken is broken as you are strong and empowered. So with that being the case, I was introduced to this gentleman by one of our property owners, Steve in St. Louis, and he said, hey, TJ, with everything you're talking about for Wanted, you have to meet this guy. You don't understand. I work with him every single week, but he goes so far beyond just working with me on my body. He understands things at the quantum level. He understands things at a level you've never seen broken down before. And this is the exact type of information that you want to get out there, the exact type of information that is going to be censored by the mainstream, that you'll never find on, for example, Discovery Health Channel or something like that. Okay? So with that being the case, I am so proud to bring onto stage Dr. Steven Spencer! Woo!
I want to start this off a little late. That's all right. I want to start this off by thanking TJ and what's that? It was good. So that wasn't me. I want to start this off by thanking TJ and Kira for putting this event together. You guys don't understand the impact that they're making. In life, we want to be the cause and not the effect. And the cause, you may not understand this, but the cause are the people that are proactive. They're the people that are actually making a difference. The effect are the people that are just letting life happen to them. And they wait for things to happen until they get bad. And when we take action, we can actually activate these mirror neurons. And these mirror neurons are emulating it's evolutionary. They are emulating what our neighbors are doing. So you always hear in the motivational circuits how you want to surround yourself with the 5 most influential people you possibly can to make the biggest impact you can in your life. But the truth is you can be the impactful person if you choose to be the cause and not the effect. So my story of how I became a naturopathic doctor was one of healer, heal thyself. And at the age of 22 years old, I had a bulging disc and I couldn't walk and I lost motor control of my foot. So in my early 20s, I walked around crooked with scoliosis, dragging my leg behind me, and I knew in my heart there had to be an answer. And I knew that the traditional care methods that were out there of chiropractic, acupuncture, physical therapy, massage didn't work consistently. And I tried them all over and over. I kept traveling. I even went to means of going to Asia, studying with monks, studying with shamans in Indonesia. I traveled everywhere. I did remote healings from healers in Uganda. I did anything and everything I possibly could to try to figure out what was wrong. And through my search, I found answers. And I got the scoliosis addressed. But then later on, I got hit again. And then I got hit with chronic Lyme and brain fog, couldn't think. And then again, I'm on the search for doctors and mentors and trying to figure it out. Overcame that. At the age of 37, I was diagnosed with MS. I was driving my car and my vision went out and I had to slowly pull over. And as I pulled over, my vision slowly faded back in. And I'm like, what was that? So I started researching, looking for answers. once again. Now, MS is one of these things that most people never come back from at all. They suffer with it chronically forever. But I knew there had to be a way. And along the road, I discovered how this process actually works and how all disease happens. Because the answer isn't in a pill, it's not in a supplement, it's not in a hormone, it's none of these things. They teach us to heal, just take this hormone, take this supplement, take this antibiotic, right? Most doctors are gonna focus on hormones. They're gonna tell you it's a neurotransmitter, it's the gut microbiome. And we can improve all these functions: cardiovascular function, respiratory function, digestion. All these factors can improve with one factor. It's not taking a pill, and it's not taking an injection. It's not peptides, it's not biohacking, it's none of it. It's one process. And that process is called aerobic respiration. It's actually how we take oxygen and convert that to carbon dioxide. And you can heal yourself in the same way. But it's not, it seems complicated, but it really isn't. So in this process of oxygen converting to superoxide, you need SOD and nitric oxide. Those are antioxidants. And to make these antioxidants, you only need two things. You need minerals and you need amino acids. And this is where what TJ is doing right now is going to make a great impact on your life. We want organic, sustainable farming, raw nutrients that haven't been denatured. As soon as you do that, you can't make your antioxidants. You need to make these. And raw milk, with its calcium, activates this ATPase enzyme that is in your mitochondria. So you have this organelle that's shaped like this, and electrons have to move through it. And there's 4 stages in the mitochondria. And if electrons don't move, you get reductive stress and free radicals. So we need to offset this with our antioxidants. So to activate this ATPase enzyme, you need calcium, but you also need sunlight. That's going to activate the parietal cells in your stomach to make hydrochloric acid so you can break down the proteins and actually utilize the B12 that's there. Otherwise, you don't utilize it. So you need sunlight, raw milk, and you need grass-fed, pasture-raised beef. And now, because we have the antioxidants, we offset the oxidative damage and we make more CO2. When our CO2 levels are high, we activate chromatin. And that chromatin comprises your DNA. These histones that make up the chromatin make up your DNA. And then it relaxes it. It stops gene expression is what it actually does. So everybody's told, well, you have the genetics. It's just genetic. But the reality is genes are the gun, but environment pulls the trigger. It's not set in stone. You can control these factors. And there's 7 factors. It's water, it's food, it's rest, it's exercise, it's mind, it's environment, and it's posture. It's those 7. So I know we're like, okay, well, what are those factors? And we're going to cover a few of these. But there's a few that are the most important, and we don't have 8 hours. When I normally lecture on this, I lecture for 8 hours in my office. And when I travel to other states, I lecture for 8 hours on this whole process. But I'm going to give you the shortcut and the cheat, because this is the answer to restore all of your vitality and your youthfulness. Because this is how we make our hormones. The hormones are actually made through this process, because if this is disrupted, we have oxidative damage, it's going to impair these hormones. And so we have this cycle. There's stress, too many free radicals. So now what we got is you got high cortisol. Cortisol, when it's elevated, is going to increase histamine. It's also going to increase serotonin. Now, serotonin, when it's elevated, and histamine, when it's elevated, increases estrogen. It also is going to increase prolactin and lactate, which then lowers our T3, that's our thyroid hormone. And that T3 has to convert in your liver to make your sex hormones. So your testosterone is regulated by this. And to make testosterone, again, you need B vitamins, you need cholesterol, red meat, and you need sunlight. those three things. But as I cover all this and some of the nutritional things, the main thing is out of these 7 basics, what we want to realize is that there's a hierarchy. And the most important thing that nobody ever tells you about is your mind in this picture. So you have your mind. Number 2 is your environment. Oop. Number 3 is going to be posture. Number 4 is going to be movement. I'm abbreviating all these. And the last one is actually the food. So number 5 is the food. And you're like, how can that be? Food is everything. That's what you're told. It's food. It's food. The food's poison. And while that is true, we can't depend on the FDA, the AMA, and the USDA. We can depend on people like Raw Foods. We can depend on TJ and Kira to support us and care about us. But we must take personal accountability. We must be proactive. We must be the cause and not the effect, and take personal accountability for our health. The Bible actually tells us if you neglect the temple, God will destroy it. You cannot disrespect the temple. You have to understand these processes because you are a light being manifest in the physical matter. You are the spiritual being having a human experience. And this is why the mind is your number one importance in this life, being a spiritual being having this human experience. And the story takes us way back to 4.5 billion years ago. And 4.5 billion years ago, our Earth was primarily hydrogen. And we had this thing in our sky called the sun. And in Genesis 1, it says, "Let there be light." This is the event of creation. It's also called the zinc spark. This is the same event that occurs when a soul enters into a zygote. So this creation event and the zinc spark of the sun is a big hydrogen ball. And it produces these photons that are accelerating protons off of the sun. And so you have these protons of light, or these photons of light with protons in them that are being emitted off. And around that, you have the electron all the way around. And these electrons, as they are released and spun from the protons with the charge, are actually forming matter. So what it is it took all these atoms in our atmosphere and it made a magnetic charge. See, there's wavelength and amplitude in light. It's a magnetic field. And what it did is it formed these molecules together, it built our Earth. And the funny thing is you are from the earth and of the earth, just like it says in the Bible. So it formed this magnetic field around the earth, like so. It took all those atoms and comprised together through that magnetic field. So now we have this iron core in our earth, and we have this magnetic field around it. Well, back then, this environment that was created is the exact magnetic field that allowed prokaryotic life to convert to eukaryotic life so that we could utilize oxygen. And this eukaryotic life and oxygen, as this happens, now we have multicellular cells. So this took this protein called ceruloplasmin and allowed copper to bind to iron to make hemoglobin. So remember the story with the earth and the iron? The center of your cell is iron. So you are this electromagnetic being formed of this stardust. And your thoughts create a field around you. So if this is your body and your center is iron, you're forming a magnetic field or an ionosphere around you. Now, what's funny is, remember how I said DNA turns off and on? In this picture, your DNA is a protein, and all proteins are semiconductors for light. That means you receive the light from the sun, the God's creation, you receive that light, and then it's emitted outside of you. This movement of electrons through this field here and here is called the photoelectric effect. And the photoelectric effect is also, it's E equals mc squared. And probably everybody remembers that, I would think, from physics class. But E equals mc squared. It's energy and mass are interchangeable by light. So through this photoelectric effect, now we receive electrons from the sun, and they're emitted from our DNA outside of our body through thought. It's your thoughts and beliefs that are actually changing the amplitude and the wavelength outside of you, that are changing the atoms and forming what you're seeing. So truthfully, you are creating as you act, think, and speak. That's why what Jesus said and told his disciples, you will go on to do greater works than you and I, is exactly what he meant. Because you're made in God's image, just like it says. And so we can make an impact on our lives just with our thoughts and beliefs, impacting this flow of aerobic respiration. Oxygen to superoxide to hydrogen peroxide to CO2. So everybody says, well, I think positive. I don't understand. I'm always positive. But here's the kicker. This is what you're missing. It's not your conscious mind, it's your subconscious mind, which is 98% of your thought. So if this is 98% of our thought, and it's changing the light wave that's outside of us, we can truly transform our reality. What you got is this brain with a hippocampus. And that hippocampus remembers every single experience that happened to you. And then your brain stem is here. And you have your amygdala, right? And this amygdala is the emotion. And the hypothalamus is here in this brain stem. That controls your heart rate, your respiration, your digestion. Every single autonomic function is controlled by this process. So for instance, something happened to you, let's say at 10 years old, and your dad was an alcoholic. And God or Jesus tells us to forgive our enemies. But you never forgave your father because he was an alcoholic and he wasn't there for you, and you were upset because all your friends, their dads went to the baseball games. Their dads took them to the Boy Scouts. Their dads did everything for them. But your dad wasn't there because he was an alcoholic and he was in the bar all the time. That little 10-year-old boy is still playing a movie in your mind. And as that little boy is playing that movie in his mind, even though he's 45, 46 years old, it's running a pattern of survival because he's angry. He didn't forgive. And that affects the flow of electrons. So what's happened now is we didn't forgive Dad. The flow of electrons is inhibited through the mitochondria. And now we're making all kinds of reactive oxygen species like peroxynitrate, hydroxyl radicals. We're making too much superoxide. And that oxidative damage is deteriorating cellular function. Because when we resist the flow of life, we die. When we forgive people, you actually get a bigger dopamine spike than drinking, attending things you love like sporting events. We get a bigger dopamine spike than doom scrolling on our social media. All these other external factors that bring us temporary joy compare nothing to forgiving your enemy. And so this little 10-year-old boy who hadn't forgiven his father, and how it affects the flow of electrons, he's holding on to resentment, anger, and depression as a 10-year-old little boy in his mind. And in Chinese medicine, there's the 5 elements. It's fire, earth, metal, water, wood. And if we resist the flow of life, and you have that anger, which is in the wood element in Chinese medicine, it affects the liver. And the liver metabolizes cholesterol. So we never forgave Dad. Our liver's impaired. The energy doesn't flow in a Shen pathway, which means it doesn't feed into the heart. If you can't filter out the cholesterol, and you never forgave your dad, now all of a sudden we end up with cardiovascular disease. All because of the fact that we never forgave Dad when we were a 10-year-old little boy. And it's God's way of telling us to open up our hearts and forgive. That's where the message actually lies. Now, we can focus on the other things like the food and the exercise and drinking clean water, and they're all important. Everything matters. But what is true is that you are a physical manifestation of God created in his image. And it's about the thought. And it's about taking responsibility for what's within you. Because truthfully, and Jesus said this, he said, if you ignore what is within you, it will destroy you. If you embrace what is within you, it will heal you. And that's the ticket, is to being truthful and transparent with yourself about what's actually occurring, because disease in the mind truthfully manifests as disease in the body. And that means that you have more control over your world and the outside world. You can impact the mirror neurons within yourself to influence the others. And we have a choice every single day to wake up and be proactive and disappear, or just disappear and run away in fear. And the truth of the matter is that if you are afraid and you have fear, you haven't perfected love. And love is the energy that actually performs this process. And the way that Jesus said it is actually, if you have fear, you have not perfected love. Because perfect love casts out fear. So it's about embracing that. The flow of energy is all about having that same energy of love in our hearts, just like Jesus Christ did. And with that, now we have the power to actually change the life of others through the mirror neurons that exist within our mind. And everything always started with the creation event of the sun and embracing who we are as a soul.
All right. So let's just pause here. Is it okay
here.
if we do a little bit of just a few Q&A?
Yeah, we can answer some questions. After I'm done speaking here, and I'll answer somebody's questions, but I'm going to go in the back, and anybody that wants to talk to me, we can discuss what you have individually going on if you want, and we'll do a small meet and greet, and then is it working? We'll do a small meet and greet, and then I'm going to offer everybody here, if they want to get their DNA or the labs done, their blood work, a special discount for being a part of the wanted group.
Does anybody have any questions about anything that he was talking about a little bit earlier?
Hopefully I wasn't talking too much over everybody's head.
We got Ignacio. Ignacio, you have a question.
Thank you. So, doctor, what would be the difference for us when we consume regular beef than when we consume grass-fed organic beef? What does that do to our body?
So, one of the things I talked about was copper binding to iron, and to make your hemoglobin, so you can utilize this oxygen that we're now eukaryotic. And glyphosate, oftentimes there's runoff, even if it's not in the area, there's runoff. And in this area, I don't think we have that problem. But glyphosate in itself is basically pulling copper out of the soil so you don't have the minerals. Copper has to bind to iron to make hemoglobin. So the reason for all the gut distress is partially because of glyphosate and the hydroxyl radicals that are produced. But also, you have to remember, there are other things they're using. They're putting estrogens, right? There's actually a mold that they're injecting the cattle with that is going to increase the estrogen so the cattle grows faster. You're ingesting that mold when you eat that animal. They're giving them antibiotics. And antibiotics are extremely problematic as well. Antibiotics, I truthfully don't believe in the germ theory. I believe in the disconnection from love theory. And when I say that, what I mean is pathogens actually are synergistic, not opportunistic. And so when pathogens arise, it's because you're a good host. So the best way to solve this problem and not take an antibiotic, which they're life-saving, so if you have sepsis, take an antibiotic. But if it's just a minor infection, we don't want to take excess antibiotics. And what antibiotics truthfully do is they help perform what bacteria do is they perform sulfation. So they take your hydrogen sulfide and convert that to sodium sulfate. If you can't do that, bacteria, yeast, fungus, and mold, these pathogens grow to perform that process for you. That's because generally you're not getting enough UV light. UV light sulfates. You need sulfation to occur to make hormones, to make neurotransmitters, to detox heavy metals, to take copper, bind it to iron, utilize oxygen through the hemoglobin. All these cellular processes are regulated by light. So, here's another thing. Everybody, and I'm gonna just answer this for everybody now. Everybody thinks that diabetes is a sugar problem, and that you got to avoid sugar and cut sugar out of your life. And that's not the answer for diabetes. The answer and the reason for diabetes is actually fats that have peroxidized, and they damage the cell, and the cell can't utilize glucose. So everybody took Otto Warburg's data and information and said, oh, cancer or sugar feeds cancer. No. Sugar, it's not that sugar feeds cancer, it's the cell can't utilize the sugar. So to actually repair the mitochondria's ability to utilize glucose again, you need sunlight, glucose, and oxygen. Those are the three components. You have to retrain the pancreatic beta cells. So what you have to do is actually eliminate the polyunsaturated fatty acids that are oxidating the cell and not allowing it to utilize glucose. But you need sunlight, and most people are living living inside climate-controlled facilities with artificial light. They're disrupting glycolysis, and they can't utilize oxygen anymore. So you need sunlight, oxygen, glucose. You have to lower the cortisol so that you can start to repair your body's ability to utilize glucose again. And part of that is actually sugar is medicine for those pancreatic beta cells. You got to repair the damaged cell, not eliminate sugar. That's just a Band-Aid. Anybody got any more questions for me? Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
this talk. I'm learning a lot. It's so cool to connect the spirituality to science,
Yeah.
finally. So my question is, I feel like I'm bombarded by detox supplements and parasite cleanses and everything else
Yeah.
online. And I heard you just talk about, you just need sunlight. So what
Yeah.
would you say is the best thing to actually detox your body?
Honest to God, sunlight. It converts your hydrogen peroxide into CO2, which helps you make cytochrome oxidase, so it activates the liver. That is the best thing you can do. And another good strategy, honestly, would be an infrared sauna, because the infrared sauna does the same thing. It takes your hydrogen peroxide and converts it into CO2, increasing cytochrome oxidase. But not only does it do that, the heat shock proteins, if you can do them for sauna 4 days a week, and bring that sauna to 140 degrees, those heat shock proteins are actually going to clear out senescent cellular debris, dead cells, but it's also going to activate the lysosome, which is like the dumpster, right? It's basically pulling all the toxins and poisons out. So the answer is never to take a supplement. That's all kind of snake oil salesy, nonsense. I don't think that we should even focus on parasites and bacteria unless it's like so bad you're in the hospital and it's like you're on death's door, right? In that case, you need medical intervention. But generally speaking, if you just want to detox and you want to have better mental clarity, most people will benefit by going out in the sun much more. But not only that, by minimizing your exposure to artificial light in these LED lightings that exist in our house, or even worse is the fluorescent lighting. Right, the fluorescent lighting has a flicker to it, and that flicker increases epinephrine, which is going to. We're gone. It's not there. That's okay. It's going to increase epinephrine, which increases serotonin, which increases histamine, leaky gut, and autoimmune. That increases estrogen, prolactin, and lactate. Right, you start to go back to hydrogen for fuel. We call that cancer. Right, and then it basically lowers your T3. Your thyroid output, and that doesn't convert then in your liver to make your sex hormones. So it's that whole process that light regulates. And the answer is to just spend more time outside, not to use your cell phone as much, put filters on your devices. If you are going to use them, there's a filter on everybody's device that they can turn on that takes out a lot of the 400 nanometer wavelength light. But along with that, we have to remember that also the Wi-Fi and the microwaves from the Bluetooth that go in everybody's head are actually demyelinating your nerves. It's dysregulating copper and iron redox. So basically what goes on is it's driving calcium and iron in the cell, and it's pulling copper out. It's uncoupling your nitric oxide and forming peroxynitrate. That's what leads to heart disease, dementia, and Alzheimer's, is that peroxynitrate. So all we have to do is say, hey, if this Wi-Fi and EMF is bad for us, why can't we just hardwire our devices? Why can't we minimize our time exposure? Why can't we turn our routers off at night? These are small little behaviors that we can implement in our life that will go light years and create longevity, allowing us to take our oxygen and convert that to carbon dioxide more efficiently. And that's it. I mean, you can tell how healthy somebody is by looking at their cortisol to DHEA ratios. That's what you want to do, because when oxygen doesn't convert to carbon dioxide efficiently, their sex hormones are impaired. So they have high cortisol and low DHEA. And we know that that's the root cause. So we want a 14-to-1 ratio. If we don't have that, we know that their process of oxygen to carbon dioxide is impaired. And all we have to do is now look at their DNA, find out their genetics, where their methylation pattern is disrupted. And that's where there's possible could be a break causing the oxidative damage, but then the blood work actually tells us what's actually occurring. So it's like this underwater chess game that we're playing with all the lifestyle factors to get us to the destination of the restoration of health, which is basically the connection back with God, right? That's basically what's going on. You can't ignore what's within you or it will destroy you. You have to embrace it for what it is, and whether it be a factor in your mind and the environment and your posture, right? Whether it be the water you're drinking, whatever it is, there's a way to improve it. But most of the time, these supplements, like detox supplements or parasite cleanses, are superfluous. They're totally unnecessary, and it masks symptoms. You maybe feel better temporarily, but we want sustainability. Yeah.
What advice do you have on fasting? You did one in January, and you did another one last week. But
Yeah.
what do you have in times of periodization? It was a no food fast, but then sometimes I started feeling a bit faint, so I took like a sip a little bit of juice just to keep the blood sugar up, and then might have like if I was feeling faint, might have like a glass of milk or something like that. But I prefer to stay on just a water fast. Longest one was 14 days, and then did 3 days recently. Felt great, but I mean, I want to know how to do it best, and also if there's any, just optimization, whatever you've got on it.
Why are you doing a fast, first of all?
This is spiritual. There was like really just wanted to put my flesh on the altar, and I'd never done it before. My church really advocated for us to do it, and so going in on it, miracles happened. Like, I kid you not, miracles happened. It was truly, truly amazing. I really think that everybody should do it. I don't like to talk about it. You know, you're not supposed to really talk about these things.
Why?
Or anything like that. Well, I mean, it's not a flex. You know what I mean? But like, I'm just kind of asking you just for advice in this case. But in terms of how to do it, not just the why, but I guess how to best do it in the end.
So what you're attempting to do is to stimulate autophagy, right? And you're attempting to get mental clarity. Jesus would disappear in the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights to battle the devil. He was just going in the woods. He wasn't battling the physical devil. He was going there to deal with his subconscious mind. He was basically saying, hey, I'm going to find out what's within me, and I'm going to become better and stronger so he can be of service to others, is exactly what he was doing. So when it comes to fasting, to me, it's kind of an artificial crutch. And so the funny thing is if you exercise, you stimulate autophagy. Fructose can stimulate autophagy. A sauna can stimulate autophagy. It's a balance between autophagy and the AMPK enzymatic process. You want to ask something?
So you're saying putting the flesh on the altar, and I mean, it was for clarity and discernment. It was prayer, and it was like, so it was for clarity and discernment. But I see what you mean, and I felt that. Like, I mean, whenever I slay myself at the gym or on a long run or something like that, I kind of feel like putting the flesh on the altar a bit of a sacrifice in some way. So you're kind of saying that
here's the cellular process that actually happens when you fast. Okay. I personally won't do it. Right, and I think that there's some people that probably will have some benefit from it, and they're strong enough, have a strong enough immune system to actually deal with the stress of it. But there's other people that if they did that, it's going to destroy them. Right. So here's the deal: you're a young guy and you're pretty fit, so you can handle that stress, and it is stress because when you don't eat food and you fast, it increases cortisol, and it does that because your body needs glucose to make energy. So it's going to break down your proteins in your body to get glucose. That's what it's doing. And that's a stress response. And when we stress, if you remember the pathway, if we increase cortisol, we increase histamine and create leaky gut and autoimmune. We also increase serotonin and give us anxiety. Short term, there's benefit, right? Serotonin we need, right? But at the same time, it's also going to increase estrogen, prolactin, and lactate, lower our T3, and then we don't make our sex hormones because it doesn't convert in our liver. So there's there's a stress response that occurs, right? Your body wants to make glucose. You need sunlight, oxygen, glucose to make energy, right? For oxygen to convert to carbon dioxide, that activates the chromatin so that the DNA can just relax and unwind and tell our cells to function properly, right? We can change the cellular potentiation in that cell just with our thoughts. By encompassing the love of Christ in our hearts, you can actually do that. And you don't need a fast. There's zero reason for it. But I get it. Some people do get benefit from it, but they're healthy enough. Yeah, so you don't have to do it, but I personally advise all my patients not to do it. There's a better way of doing it that's not stressful. Yeah.
Going back to the last topic, what's like the optimal amount of sunlight that you need for red light therapy, right? They only like back to that.
Yeah. So did I cut you off or? No, okay.
Yeah.
So it depends on the latitude that you live at, right? So the sun is going to be much stronger near the equator. And there's also different components of the sun at different times of the day. So in the first part of the day, it's primarily infrared. Infrared is going to move the electrons through our mitochondria. It's going to drive those, so we make more CO2. UVA light in the afternoon, that's going to perform sulfation, right? That's the process that takes your hydrogen sulfate, converts that to sodium sulfide. Remember, if you can't do that, bacteria, yeast, fungus, and mold and pathogens grow. So the answer to this is we want to get about an hour of light in the morning. We want to connect with nature. We want to get up, we want to watch the sun come up, get an hour of light in our eyes, right in the retinal hypothalamic tract. So the suprachiasmatic nucleus within our brain detects that circadian clock and it starts to make melatonin. When it makes melatonin, it's also going to regulate your cortisol. It's going to regulate your dopamine. It's going to regulate your serotonin. See, all these factors are stimulated based upon first morning light. And it increases alpha MSH, which actually has some antimicrobial benefits, but it's priming these melanocytes to being able to handle the UV light in the afternoon. So the perfect scenario, most people when they get sunlight, they're like, oh, I need my vitamin D. It's not just vitamin D. It's also, and vitamin D isn't just the immune system. It's controlling every cellular process. It's controlling oxygen utilization. It's controlling detoxification. It's controlling your thought and your production of neurotransmitters because all aromatic amino acids have to be sulfated. So we need light in the morning, and then we need an hour to an hour and a half of light in the afternoon. Then evening, the sun starts to set, and we get more infrared again. So it's this circadian rhythm of how we were meant to be. We were meant to be outside hunting and gathering, not inside in climate-controlled facilities with artificial light and not exposure to extreme temperatures. So being outside, barefoot, getting electrons from the earth, receiving electrons from the sun are all crucial to controlling your hormones and your immune system, your circulatory system, your digestive system. Every system in your entire body is regulated by light. And then your thoughts change the light that's emitted outside of you. So we can truthfully change the matter, and that's why I tell everybody disease in the mind becomes disease in the body, because you're truthfully warping the time-space continuum with your thoughts. You're actually pulling your experiences into you, and the negative things that are happening to you, those are gifts in strange wrapping paper. They're actually happening for you and not to you. So, and again, the right thing to do is just get light at different parts of the day to receive the different spectrums of light in the retina to set up that hormonal cascade that is correct. And that way you actually will get the restorative sleep that you need. Does that answer your question?
So an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, and like 30 minutes in the day?
I would do an hour each if you can. I would just be outside as much as possible. No, don't, and here's the thing, you have to prime the melanocytes. Don't just, oh, I need sun, and then go right out in UV light in the mid-afternoon, right? You haven't built your solar callus yet. Right? Oh, I'm just gonna go. I haven't got it in a while. I'm gonna go out for 3 hours. That's how you get problems, right? That's how we cause That's how we get radiation. That's how we get sun poisoning. It's about priming it, and the more exposure you get, and the more you prime yourself, the more light you're going to be able to handle, the more sun exposure you can handle.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Seriously, that was appreciated.
Yeah, you bet.
Big round of applause for Dr. Steven Spencer. That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.